considered merit, then they are inspired to do even worse. So the function of leadership is really, really important. And when they are splashed on the media, and your commander or your leadership is said to be this and the other, then you can imagine what that also does to the. So it's a bit of a chaotic situation, and I've spoken most ably by yourself, Madam Gikonya, about the report that was, came off the commission that was set up and led by the able retired Justice, Chief Justice. I feel really strongly, of course, in support to this kind of negotiated as one of those exit, as one of those preferred, undertakings, and where, yes, you go to invite the external actors that can help. Sometimes, and I do believe the function of external actors, in terms of people who serve, people who've been there, people watching that space from outside, is very, very critical. Sometimes you're in a house and you're far too engrossed in that house and reeling in a very bad inertia, going south when the whole world is reeling in a different direction, and you may not be very aware of that, so especially when you're in that boat or even in that sea. So it takes an external eye sometimes to tap you on the shoulder and say, yes, we feel you're going in the wrong direction. And so you can do with, reversing this bad inertia by taking, into your strides, 1, 2, 3. So I really feel strongly in support of that kind of negotiated, kind of exit, because leadership, especially has a very strong, of course, enabler to the attainment of, say, even the counter-culturing, because what we are dealing with here is a culture that is not just affecting this current dispensation, as we are saying and as we're witnessing it, but it's a borrowed hangover from the previous service. And as we know it, there's that continuity, and that continuity also ensures that the culture and the traditions that die hard keep repeating themselves. So it's not by feats and starts and declarations, even by policy, guys who sit at the top of policy making as CSS and all. It should be in the doing, and the actual doing has got to be really bold and revolutionary steps to be taken in order to actually reverse the bad gains. Over to you, if our hosts are now presently seated within this space. Ashley and JC, thank you.
All right, thank you, Wakili. Byron, I hope you can hear me this time round. I mean, we have been hearing of these two terms, anarchy, dictatorship. From a security point and even from a Kenyan perspective, perhaps from where you sit, are we sliding into anarchy? Are these telltale signs of dictatorship?
Well, thank you so much for that question. I will not speak as a lawyer, but from the security perspective, I feel, yes, if there is a level of infiltration by other actors within a space that is, as I said, high reliability space, that the provision of public safety, security, and order is, then that is a sure sign that things are not right. I mean, if you are within an institution that is really entrusted with the highest responsibility, that if you are to really deliver a judgment, so to speak, and I'm speaking cautiously, judgment in quotes, and if you are to, like what we saw, to squeeze a trigger, then it got to be judged again at the very fact that lives are at stake. If you commit to certain activities or omit doing certain activities, then destruction of property and all lives are at stake. And so when you wedge yourself into that gap as a police operator, an army operator, whoever is in this profession that is supposed to be providing the essential services, maintenance or law and order, protection of the citizenry, if you are to then turn back on that and put that strategy on its head to even get to bed with the bad actors, then that is the lowest of the lowest. What that does, and the other speakers have spoken to it, is that it empowers those that see themselves as being supported on their very bad habits by the same guys that are supposed to be dealing in justice on site, if they are seen to be, spreading those ill-motivated actions. What it does is actually empowers them to do even worse. So then, if that's not anarchy, then by definition, I don't know. So then, what we are discussing here, and of course, again, is the backdrop of what was witnessed in the recent past and what's been witnessed, is the very fact that if we do not reverse the gains from the perception perspective, because the security is what you actually see, which is real and of course perceived. So if it's the perception that is given to everybody, even the well-intentioned, good-intentioned individuals, is that the broken mirror theory, where we are sitting on top of an infrastructure that seems to be watching its space broken, but it's not trying to fix it. So it's everything goes. So that means that everything goes, especially for the unguarded and unguided, ill-intentioned individuals. Then the sky is no longer the limit for them. So what we are witnessing is a bad precedent, as clearly as has been stated by the other speakers as well, and it's worrying as much as it should worry everybody, that then if we do not fix that as urgently as is needed, then again, the game is open at the field, is open for everybody else. What it also does as well, if you are to sit on this other side of the aisle, even to the well-intentioned individuals, is that the feeling of hopelessness, that the people that are meant to protect them are not only not doing that, so which is an omission and of course subjugation of their duties, but they are also inviting other actors that then leave everybody else feel very, very hopeless and in the hands of people who are limitless in terms of what they could actually do to disrupt that general peace and order within the spaces that are, of course, presumed governable in the sense that we have the capacity to actually police those spaces, but we are brilliantly executing the wrong vision. So in which case, we're actually going south when the good and well-intentioned inertia is reeling away in the opposite direction. Over to you.
All right, thank you, Byron, for that. Wakili, just a question. I mean, from where we are right now, a youth and young Kenyans have decided that they will go back to the streets next week. But let's look at it from a perspective where there are those who are scared right now. Yes, you want to fight for your country, fight for your rights, but at the same time, this could lead to your death. A catch-22 situation. How do we move forward? Wakili, can you hear me? Wakili, can you hear me? Could you hear the question that I asked? Perhaps Byron, you could pick it up as we conclude.
Sorry, I can hear you now, but you could rehearse me through that question, Miss Ashley.
Oh, okay, great. I was asking, we're at a point where, yes, youth are fighting for their rights, but at the same time, they're scared because you might go to the streets and, that could be the end of your life. It's a really catch-22 situation where you're stuck between, yes, I want to fight for my country. After all, this is for all of us. What happens then?
Yep. Thanks for that question. I mean, largely we've watched this space, and we sure can say we've grown, through the softening vista of years. We've grown from the point where there were very violent contestations to a point where we've seen a lot of, those demonstrations being very peaceable and unarmed. So the good old saying, to him that much is given, much is expected. We'd sure hope, much as it's a hopeless situation, that our operators, and this is not just the National Police Service, we've seen other actors also coming into the equation. And how I wish that we all get to lockstep with the best of practices, because no operations orders that are sane and that are given by commanders that are well-meaning, or operational leadership that are well-meaning, say that you go out there and take innocent lives. And to an extent that I also believe that there are quite a number of good, able and very, capacitated leadership within even the National Police Service that are very, very well-meaning. I know of individuals that are very, very professional, even within the rank and file of the National Police Service. And I wish that these individuals get to, shine their light a lot more, so as to obviously limit the circumference of the darkness that is being spread by their mates. But that said, it would be great to actually look at the psychological elements and how that also plays out from the perception side of things of the other guys on the other side. And by so saying, the guys were picketing and coming out peaceably and unarmed. If you were to remember instances with me, even within the clamor, right around the reading of the finance bill back last year. And if you remember when the then police Nairobi commander, that is Adamson Bungei, when he came out and on this fine day, he just had a radio in his hand, he had a cane stick, tucked under his arm, and he had, a smile, a big smile on his face, and walked right within a crowd. And you saw what that did. So immediately, the crowd that looked really charged and irate, was instantly disarmed and met, Mr. Bungay with smiles and, of course, greetings. So that's how much, just coming out and milking, and grinding on the psychological elements in terms of the management of crowd dynamics does do. But speaking about that as well, in terms of inspiring that goodwill on the part of the general populace, is if you witness the army rollout, with Humvees on that particular day, and driving right within the same street where the policemen were, in very crazy running battles with the general populace, and of course those who were demonstrating. If you saw the army trucks, roll down the streets of Nairobi in the CBD, you would see individuals even get on top of those vehicles, with greetings and ululations. And that is what happens when you've won the legitimacy game and you are inspiring that kind of goodwill on the part of the demonstrator. So if you were to behave better and potentially, pick examples out of those scenarios, and if you're to go back all the way to the post-election violence, 2007, 2008, there was that celebrated GSU operator. A perfect example of someone coming out and portraying themselves in a profile, posturing, and a presence that, inspired confidence and inspired good reaction and response from the part of the public. If you are to remember that particular GSU officer. And so the police can look at that space. And however much those examples are isolated, those ones are really the best case scenarios and best practices that are expected of the National Police Service. And when they do that, the general public are inspired to act in kind. And by acting in kind, they'd be very peaceable. And you saw people saying, we come in peace. We just want to send our petitions to this and the other. And ideally, everybody goes back home with their noses intact. Everybody goes back home with their lives intact. And potentially, we are driving this country into a better direction, especially when we start to speak to each other in a way that is also inspiring an exchange of ideas. I'm pretty certain that with those examples given, I don't know, but I'm sure that that particular day when Adamson Bungay went back home, he was probably a very, very happy man. That eventually, when he walked out unarmed and looking happy and with a radio and just a cane stick in his hand, things were a lot better than when, if it was to be in a different scenario, you walk out all armed, looking, really grim faced. That doesn't inspire and potentially that would encourage a completely different reaction from the part of the general public or the demonstrators. So how I wish that if we all operated, under the confines of the constitutionalism of constitution, as he said, can be a constitution without constitutionalism. So if we were to all operate under the law, then ideally we'd take this country to greater heights, because ideally we are all citizens in this project Kenya, and the more we morally rearm and start to appreciate that our differences are potentially points of strength in terms of a converged journey towards a better project Kenya, then the earlier and the better we do realize that, the better it will be for project Kenya. Thank you, and over to you, Madam Ashley.
All right, thank you so much, Byron. I can see BLKN Bet. I hope I pronounced that correctly. You requested for a chance to speak. What's your contribution?
Hello, hello. How are you?
Great, thank you. Please continue.
What do you need from me?
What's your contribution? BLKN Bait, perhaps you can unmute and give us your contribution.
Okay, as we wait for perhaps Beacon Bait to add his views, as we conclude with this space, it's really proper to know that this is simply a call to action to ensure that the issues that need to be conversed are being done so in a proper manner within the rule of law, within constitutionalism, because we're a democracy in Kenya. Even as we give you updates on what is expected, just to inform you that the IPOA is set to question Eliud Lagat tomorrow, the DIG, as the last officer to record a statement. 20 have recorded statements regarding Ojwang's murder. Thus, just news reaching our studio. So we'll be informing you as standard about the very latest on Albert Ojwang's case and equally other developing issues, including what exactly is happening in hospital, the latest from KNH in regards to the unfortunate injuries that were seen yesterday. Ashley, well, what are the numbers that were given by the KNH CEO?
Well, earlier on, we had a press conference, and what they were saying is that as of yesterday, they received 16 casualties from the demos. 7 are admitted, 9 were treated and discharged, and 2 underwent surgery. So, of course, those are the numbers that we know. We don't know of, perhaps someone who might be hurt, and we're not aware of that situation. But I just want us to sort of wrap up this conversation. Perhaps, Wanjiru, we can start with you, your closing remarks.
Right. Thank you, Ashley, and apologies. I was offline a bit, just some interference on my side. I think these are difficult but pertinent questions at a difficult time. With regard to the commemoration planned for the 25th of June for next week, that will succeed if other stakeholders step up and come out. It's been encouraging to hear commitments by the former Chief Justice, Willy Mutunga, and others like him saying they will come out because 25th of June was really a watershed in our country where citizen power came up to challenge a sitting regime. And never had that happened. We've never had a situation in Kenya where widespread national protests are called that are not being led by the political elite. And this is what scared the political regime, that the people of Kenya, the young people of Kenya, organized themselves on social media, which is why now they must enforce the most draconian measures to clamp, use of social media, including micro-targeting and high surveillance, because they cannot afford to let young people organize. Young people are enlightened, they are aware, they are angry, and they are calling for accountability, something which this regime is not willing to give. And so the 25th will succeed to the extent that other movements beyond the young people, other leaders feel that this is a national moment to come out and express very clearly that we cannot condone police violence when citizens are expressing the right of assembly, because it was Article 37, right of assembly. In this case with Albert Ojwang, it's the rights of the arrested person. We've got Article 33, rights of expression. So we need cross-movement building so that this protest is not just being led by the young, But all Kenyans need to recognize our country is at risk of being taken over by criminals, because what we are seeing is criminality in the highest places. The second thing I will say as I close is just to remind ourselves that Kenya is an electoral authoritarian state. We are almost a democracy, but not quite. And the authoritarian state preserves itself in power by using the police force as a tool of repression. And so until we deal with that problem, until we can reform the oppression and surveillance and violent, extreme judicial actions by the police, no one is safe. We are all at risk. And as the Maraga Task Force report tells us, we need comprehensive reforms. And as part of that, we need a negotiated exit of the leaders of these key institutions because they have failed us. And these are the leaders, when you look at the CS Murkomen, based on his performance in his previous docket, the statements he made here, completely out of step with what was going on. If that docket were to be audited, these procurements were to be audited, we don't know what would come out. But definitely the reforms he's advancing are not addressing the issues on the table. So that's even incompetence, if we are to be very generous. Then we look at the DCI, the complicity in this matter and others that have been there. We look at NIS, I had already given that from the process of appointment. These are leaders who are not serving Kenyans, who have lost the trust of Kenyans. So we need a negotiated statement where we say, look, you're Kenyans like us, but you have failed to uphold the constitution, so please move aside, because we must do better than this. And we need to clean that up. Otherwise, we are not going to progress. We then need a vetting process that takes place in a environment that has legitimacy and confidence, because Kenyans, we quote Singapore a lot, and we've said we want to be like Singapore. They transformed themselves from a very corrupt country into a leading economy and all of that. But we forget that in Singapore, the transformation came from the very top. Zero tolerance to corruption was from the top, leadership by example. In this case, our top is compromised. So we need a citizen process. So we need to be alive to the politics, but also recognize that we must work across stakeholders and engage this politics to get the leaders who aren't serving us out and clean up our electoral process, and also deal with the electorate, because democracies need a responsible electorate, an electorate that will not elect thieves, robbers, rapists, like Kenyans love to do. So we need to recognize we are in a bad place, but also recognize that we've been in bad places before. And by coming together and through citizen action, we've been able to bring our country to where it is now. So let us not allow the blood of the 352 comrades be in vain. Let us not allow the pain of those families that have lost their loved ones, of those who have suffered detention and are scarred for life. Let that pain not be in vain. Let us make sure we come together and act. Thank you so much, Ashley, Jesse, and comrades, and all the comrades on the call.
Well, thanks, Gikonyo. Closing remarks right there. Even as we hear from Byron Adera right now, remember, we're still urging those of us who have a suggestion, something to give in terms of this conversation, kindly request to speak, and we'll definitely usher you into the conversation. I can see a couple of requests that have come through. And we had already brought on board Lukoko KE, who had requested to speak. I don't know if you have any suggestion, kindly share it right now. Lukoko, if you can hear me. Okay, it's connecting as we speak. Unfortunately, he still hasn't given his suggestion, but would love to hear from you in terms of your views in around this particular topic. Let's hear from Byron Adera. Just brief remarks as we finalize on this all-important conversation with retrospect to what happened in the past few weeks, including yesterday, and equally what to anticipate next week, even as June 25th seems to be a day of reckoning in terms of Kenyans standing out to agitate for accountability and matters to do with good governance. Over to you, Byron, briefly.
Thanks a lot, JC. My closing remark would be to take the game back to the police. I know there's always a halfway point where you can renegotiate, recall your actions, and negotiate them, and altogether remedy your actions. And my hope and the encouragement to the National Police Service that are charged with the very critical duty of safeguarding this country, of course, the maintenance of law and order, the preservation of stability and peace. Those are very high liability functions that if they were to look inwards and introspect and have hard conversations to the extent that the leadership throughout the all rank and file can start to look very deeply within, and even with a healthy dosage of internal dissent. We sure know that all revolutionary changes, or when you have to come up with things that really have to reset you back on the good rails, almost like you're taking at about turn, do not come from consensus. They usually come from having those very, hard conversations that are almost always having you to disagree to agree. And so I would encourage the NPS to actually start to wrap its mind around, identity, to reroute and to get onto that those acceptable identity. I know it's going to take a lot of counter-culturing, to break free from the habits that have been formed and that are dying hard, and in a sense, obviously, get to change their mindsets around, the missions that are put before them for the benefit of the general citizenry. So I would really encourage that. A lot has changed, to be very, very sincere. A lot has changed, but a lot is still needed. As I said, when those bad actions do take place, instances of killings instead of extrajudicial killings and all, every other ills that have been reported and seen within the territorial Kenya, then it gives the police a bad name. And that bad name obviously really does, feel really bad in the mouths of those that are supposed to be benefiting from their services. So a healthy dosage of internal dissent should be encouraged in terms of having those critical conversations. But as I conclude as well, the damning report that was spoken to by Wakili Steve of the mental, capacities, sort of in terms of the mental wellness, as I pour, if to quote that report that stated that 50% of both rank and file within the NPS are not very, very okay, mental health-wise. This being the mental wellness month, and especially against the backdrop of that, pandemic, if you may, states and shines a very bad light, and is worrying, so to speak. So how I wish that the police also looked at what are those interventions that can be put into the equation in order to build, a mental wellness, robust mental wellness programs that are not counterintuitive, because what you to those gaps that are created by mental illnesses that impact us most adversely. A person or a force or an institution cannot be as good as the sum total of its mental power. We live physically, yes, but we pretty much carry our mental, mental faculties and portray them in the physical sense. And so when you see some of those actions, then ideally You may be looking at people who are really impacted with mental illnesses. We actually do agree that both police and army service is a difficult task, and you operate in environments that are ultra normal, subnormal, and so they don't leave these operators unscathed. So it's a very, very important conversation to have, obviously internally, but also a conversation that should inspire them to also raise their hands up in the air and look without as to where help can come. It's part of the capacity building, and I sure hope that if they were to look at that space, or obviously harder, then we'd possibly be benefiting ourselves with wanting to create safer working environments, even for our brothers and sisters within the NPS, for the benefit of all. Thank you so much, GC. That would do for my closing remarks.
Asante sana, Byron. I appreciate your input right here. We've seen a couple of requests to hand over the mic, and I don't know if Wong the Revolutionary can hear me, if we've accepted you to give your take as a speaker. If you can unmute your mic and give us your take, we'd really appreciate it briefly. Wong, if you can hear me. Okay, unfortunately, we can't seem to connect with him, but going forward, we'll definitely ensure that we make this an all-inclusive engagement so we can equally hear from you, because that's why we're here on this space, to make it an all-round discussion where panelists give their take, where we pose the questions, and you give us your suggestions as well in terms of the way forward. Let's hear from Wakili Steve briefly as we finalize. Wakili, over to you.
Thank you very much. And I think my mic had dropped some time back. I would like to sum up my submission and by first of all associating myself with what my colleague Byron and Shiroke Konyo have mentioned, and further state that in reminding our police officers that they need to know not all orders need to be obeyed. Not all orders need to be respected. If an order falls outside the confines of the law, police officers, our junior officers need to always remember that at the ultimate end of the day, they shall be personally held accountable for their actions and conduct in service. And if in any way contravenes the Constitution, they shall bear the big brunt. So it is important that they discharge their duties respecting the law. It is important that we as Kenyans don't tire to fight for this, don't fight to fight for this better country. And we also remember that this is a leech on our skin. This poor governance, these problems we are facing with the misuse of police power, these atrocities we are seeing, these are leeches on our skin. And to remove them, it will not be a walk in the park. It will need us to be willing to persevere the pain of the heat and the fire so that we can be able to get these leeches off our skin and off our blood system. So it is important we encourage ourselves and always remember that the price of revolution is a ton of vigilance. So those who will feel despair in terms of fighting for a better country, in going out to protest because of what has been happening, we need to remember that the intention of the perpetrators of those criminality, those goons, the police brutality, their sole intention is to sell to us fear, to instill fear, so that Kenyans cannot be able to advocate for a better country, cannot be able to demand for accountability, and therefore we should not in any way allow them to get into our skin, but instead we should soldier forward, continue to push for better reforms. And we also ensure that even as we go to protest, kindly move in groups. And also it's important that you record and be live to be able to keep data, because this is the only data that we can use. Maybe it may look like the current regime, we are not able to have anyone held accountable. But I know in the very near future, if it's not with this regime, but in the very near future, those who committed these atrocities are going to be held accountable, led from the top. Therefore, we must be willing to soldier forward. We must know that the next generation, we owe it, we have a duty to them. Our children, most of us are parents right now. we have grown up always thinking that we are children and we have our parents. But recently, you look at your parent, you notice that they are aging, and we are the current parents. We are the ones being invited to attend to school meetings. So we are the parents of the day, and our children are looking forward for us to prepare a space where they can live comfortably, a place where they can enjoy those goals and those ambitions the Constitution envisaged, and even the Bill of Rights, those socioeconomic justices we aspired to bring in our country, on access to health, access to clean water, access to good roads, good security, respect to rule of law, respect to human rights. These things are achievable. These things are they just need us to soldier forward and to ensure we don't in any way allow fear to be part and parcel of our quest, because fear is what this government is trying to push under our throat. And if, as a people, we agree to fall into that trap, then our voices will be marked to a point that we can speak. Because when we see what happened even yesterday, that goons can be hired to hit the streets and torment and terrorize Kenyans under the protection of the police, uniformed police officers. In the last maandamano last year, we will see goons these guys are their police officers covering their face, disrespecting the law and a court order which has already was issued by Justice Mbahati, that no police officer should cover their faces. So some of these things are all meant to instill fear. And I want to encourage Kenyans that they should not in any way allow it to creep in, but instead soldier forward and demand for a better country, demand for a better accountability, because at the end of it all, the future belongs to us. And for it to be successful, it is in our hands to create it or destroy it. We are already here and we can't turn back. We have already come too far to turn back. We have already paid a huge price. Our comrades have already paid a huge price, those who have gone before us. And therefore, we can't turn back. We can only encourage ourselves, continue to fight. Those leaders who are in positions, who are in leaders who are already sober leaders, let me say so, kindly, in your platforms, help us to amplify the message of good governance. Help us, those who are in parliament, help us to move motions that are going to hold these people accountable. Kindly let us put a concerted effort to know that this country belongs to us, and bad leadership must be ejected and rejected. And those who think that they can continue to torment and suppress the voice of reason and think that they can be in helm forever, they always need to remember, even Mugabe died. Even Mugabe, after many, many, many years, he died. Even Munyayo, after many, many, many years of tormenting people, he finally died. And he finally left office. But this time around, those who are already in office and committing all that atrocities, they need to remember they shall be held accountable. And this generation, the advantage we have, we are young, therefore we have time. We have a lot of time. Probably by the time our older people, like Kibaki, when they were removing Nyayo, then they were too old. The current generation is younger, and our leaders should be afraid because we have a lot. It's not about but of when. Thank you very much, and I wish to rest there and encourage comrades to turn up in large numbers and to always know that the Law Society of Kenya is anchored to ensure they advocate for rule of law and respect to human rights, and therefore we are not relenting in this war. Our colleagues, we have mobilized members across the country to ensure that we turn up and provide legal services to every person who needs it at this time when the law is what this country does not respect at all. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Wakili. Well put. Thanks for your final submissions right there. Venye umesema tusiuziwe uoga in Kiswahili, of course. But as you've mentioned and perhaps hinted towards, the voice of the people is the voice of God. So justice must not only be done, but must be seen to be done, meaning some of these legal proceedings should not only be fair and impartial, but they must appear to be, emphasizing the importance of transparency and public confidence in the judicial system, lest we forget what happened with the Kware murder suspect. So just going to the dock is a semblance of justice, but at the end of the day, we need a conviction in order for justice to be served. The wheels of justice grind slowly, but they grind exceedingly fine. Right, Ashley?
Definitely. Well, I think it's a good place to wrap things up. Thank you so much, Wanjiro Gikonyo, governance advocate and social transformer, Byron Adera, security analyst, and Wakili Stephen Mbugwa, council member at LSK and equally an advocate of the High Court. And to all of you who were listening in, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope next time you'll equally take the opportunity to equally share your contributions, because we're here to inform each other, not just, listen. We are educating each other, as we say all of the time. Kenya ni home, so we have to be involved. Ashley Mazuri, I hope we'll be having this conversations frequently. You can always tweet us, share your suggestions, and we'll find a way of ensuring that we hold these spaces so that we can talk about it. For now, have a good evening and a good night. Be safe.
If you want to talk, you can talk, but I'll use you as an indication to know whether others wananisikia. Okay, I can see the director has given me a thumb up. Okay, it is okay. It's okay. Now, something happened yesterday that did not go well with the entire country, with everybody. There has been numerous reaction on this. I understand our friends, 25 of them were taken to Kenyatta National Hospital. We just saw a statement by Kenyatta National Hospital on how some of them are firing on. But most important, my interest was drawn towards Boniface. Boniface, I heard the name, Boniface. Yes, Boniface, and the other guy from which university is this? I believe is it Kenyatta University, who were shot. One was shot on the neck, and then the other one we all saw the video where the police reacted. Abdi, thank you for joining me, because I just started now. I'm still waiting for Yoko, Chege, and others. I think they are still held up somewhere. But we will still carry on as we build on the numbers to have this discussion. So I'll be throwing you the co-host so that you can help me do this. I started Mapema because I know that of late there have been several attempts and several attempts to really take the space down. So I thought it wise to start early. Hata sijafika home by then, nimeianza tu huku. So, Abdi has said ako kazini. Now, let me see. Everybody who is joining me, if you have never spoken here, you'll have to speak. But generally, I'll be throwing some of the mic to you guys. Don't be afraid to talk. Just talk. Now, I wanted to confirm with somebody who was at Kenyatta. There are a few people who went to Kenyatta so that they give us an update on how the other guy is. I understand several people have gone today in Kenyatta. I saw Babu Owino in Kenyatta. I saw Omtatah in Kenyatta. And very many other people who have gone to show their solidarity with. But I'm asking because today also, Abdi, we also got a report of Tala. Was it a police station in Tala? I don't know. I think Tala is in Ukambani, where I saw a video where I think it was a leader, an MCA, also saying there has been somebody mwenye amekufia kwa cell, and all that again points to police brutality and beating. So I am wondering, why are we being served a cocktail of negativity kila wakati? We have not rested since, I think we have not rested since the Boni issue. After Boni, after Boni, we went to, I think, Rose. After Rose, we went to Albert. It keeps on going, and we are asking ourselves the hard questions, and we, with a lot of respect, we're also asking the authorities, is it time that we had a conversation as a country about our police service? Because the way it is behaving like a force. Before the enactment of the National Police Service Act, together with the new constitution, it used to exist as a force, and it seems the force
how to end it. And as for police brutality, we must not lose our focus on what happened